John warned his daughter on the phone, his voice sharp with frustration. "Don't embarrass us at the gala," he said, reminding her that his new business partner was extremely wealthy. Emily sat in her corner office on the 42nd floor, watching the evening lights spread across the city below. Her framed magazine cover from the business journal hung proudly behind her desk, but her father never mentioned it. "Okay," she answered quietly, choosing not to argue. John continued, insisting that she must stay home because he didn't want her making strange tech conversations. Then he ended the call without saying goodbye. Emily placed her phone down gently and looked over the documents for the upcoming merger meeting. Her company, Logic Core Systems, had grown from a small garage project into a global technology leader, yet her parents still called it her little tech thing. Her father worried only about how he appeared to powerful people, especially his new partner, Michael Carter. He never asked what she truly did or how large her company had become. Emily had learned to stay calm each time he dismissed her work. Still, she felt a familiar sting as she returned to reviewing the planned $400 million merger. Her father always praised her older sister, Sarah, who lived the life they valued: marriage, social events, and luxury homes. Emily had chosen another path, one filled with difficult work and innovation. At 18, she rejected the school her parents selected and accepted a scholarship to a top technology institute instead. "Computer science is too technical," her mother had complained, worried Emily wouldn't meet the right people. But Emily met mentors, investors, and co-founders who believed in her dream. By 23, she launched Logic Core Systems, and by 28, she became the youngest female CEO of a public tech company. Her parents had attended none of her big moments, not the product launch, not the IPO celebration, and not the award ceremony naming her Entrepreneur of the Year. Her mother once said, "Very nice, dear," as if Emily's success were a small hobby. Emily eventually stopped sharing her achievements because every attempt to explain her work was treated like an inconvenience. Her father measured success through status, connections, and clubs, not innovation. Her sister met those expectations easily through marriage. Emily, however, built her achievements through long nights, difficult decisions, and a belief in creating something meaningful. 5 years earlier, Emily bought a penthouse in Tribeca for $9 million in cash and mentioned it casually during brunch. Her mother barely looked up from her phone before comparing it to Sarah's pool house renovations. That day, Emily realized nothing she built would ever match the value they placed on social status. Her father, after 40 years in real estate, still chased the circles he wanted to belong to. When he finally opened his own small firm, he proudly explained that Michael Carter invested $50 million into it. He never imagined Emily was negotiating a much larger deal herself. Emily had researched Michael Carter the moment her father mentioned him. Carter Holdings owned billions in assets and was expanding quickly into logistics and supply chain networks. Meanwhile, her own research team had already targeted his logistics division as their top merger candidate. Her father celebrated Michael's every comment, often calling Emily to share what a visionary businessman he was. He never realized Emily was preparing a $400 million deal with the same man. The contrast between what he praised and what he ignored grew clearer each month. At Thanksgiving, Emily sat quietly while her father bragged to relatives about Michael's investment in his firm. Sarah mentioned meeting Michael at the country club, describing him as charming and influential. Their mother smiled proudly, pleased that Sarah fit perfectly into their world. Meanwhile, Logic Core had closed a $230 million contract that same week, but the family conversation never reached Emily. "Emily, how's your computer work?" her mother asked casually, as if remembering a small chore. "It's going well," Emily answered, knowing any real explanation would be ignored again. After dinner, her father pulled her aside in the kitchen. "The gala is in 3 weeks," he said softly, pretending it was a delicate topic. Emily rinsed a plate, sensing where the conversation was heading. He explained that important people would attend: politicians, CEOs, and socialites, and he didn't want any awkwardness. "You know how you get at these things," he began, gently criticizing her direct way of talking. He insisted Sarah was better suited for high society. Emily dried her hands and simply replied, "Okay, Dad." 3 days later, Emily's assistant knocked on her office door with news. "Michael Carter and his team confirmed the meeting for Tuesday morning," she said. Emily nodded, reviewing the calendar and noticing it was only 3 days after the gala she was banned from. "Is that a problem?" the assistant asked. "No problem at all," Emily replied, her voice steady. She prepared her office for the meeting, knowing it would reshape the logistics industry, and unaware her father would be praising the same man at that very moment. Saturday arrived crisp and bright, but Emily kept her usual routine. She reviewed merger documents in the morning, attended her yoga class, and later met her friend Lisa for lunch. That evening, as the gala unfolded across the city, Emily read a book in bed. Her mother posted photos showing her parents standing proudly beside Michael, glowing as if they belonged in his world. Emily studied the pictures for a moment, recognizing Michael's polished smile from industry profiles. She closed her phone and went to sleep, knowing Tuesday would reveal everything her parents had never bothered to learn. Tuesday morning arrived with bright winter sunlight pouring into Emily's office. She dressed with intention, a sharp gray suit, a silk blouse, and clean heels that matched her calm confidence. Her assistant entered at 8:30, announcing that Michael Carter's team was already in the lobby. "Set everything in my office, please," Emily said as she adjusted the magazine cover on her wall. At 8:55, her father called again, bragging about how perfectly his meeting with Michael had gone the night before. "This man is the real deal, Emily," he said proudly, unaware she would meet the same man minutes later. Her father continued talking excitedly, insisting that keeping Emily away from the gala had been the right decision. "We didn't want any awkward moments," he reminded her again. He bragged about Michael's investments and future plans, completely unaware that Emily was preparing a much larger deal. "I'm happy for you, Dad," she said quietly, ending the call before he could continue lecturing. She placed her phone face down and took a deep breath. It was time to show Michael the world her father never bothered to acknowledge. Her assistant stepped inside and said softly, "They're here, Ms. Anderson." Emily nodded. Michael Carter entered first, confident and composed, followed by his CFO and logistics director. His steps slowed when he saw Emily behind the desk, surprised, confused, and then stunned. Emily extended her hand and said, "Welcome to Logic Core Systems. I'm Emily Adams, the CEO." Michael looked at her nameplate, then at the framed business journal cover, then back to her again, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. "You're John Adams' daughter?" Michael finally asked. "Yes," Emily replied calmly, gesturing for him to sit. She introduced her team and moved smoothly into the meeting, guiding the discussion with confidence. Michael's executives quickly recovered, commenting on Logic Core's impressive platform. Emily explained their predictive analytics, their global impact, and their technical strength. Michael listened closely, still processing the fact that the woman his partner had dismissed was the visionary leading the merger. During a short pause, Michael leaned forward and lowered his voice. "Your father never mentioned anything about this," he said, still amazed. Emily nodded. "He never asked." The room grew quiet as her words settled. Emily continued explaining the company's growth, revenue, and achievements. Every sentence reminded Michael that she was not just qualified, she was the reason his logistics division sought this merger. They spent the next 20 minutes reviewing integration plans and market projections. Michael shifted fully into business mode, asking sharp questions and challenging assumptions. Emily matched him point for point, demonstrating mastery over every detail. His team exchanged impressed glances as Emily outlined Logic Core's strategy with clarity. Finally, Michael paused again and said, "Your father truly had no idea." Emily answered simply, "He never cared enough to learn." Michael sat back, absorbing her words. He admitted that Emily's father had spent the entire gala praising Sarah and describing Emily as someone finding her way in tech. The description stung, but Emily refused to show it. "It's how he sees me," she said calmly. Michael studied her for a moment, then said, "This merger is too important for personal feelings to interfere." Emily agreed. Her family's assumptions would not stop her from building the future she envisioned. The negotiation began in full force. Emily pushed back on valuation changes, insisted on protecting Logic Core's control, and maintained a steady tone throughout the discussion. Michael challenged her but respected her boundaries, clearly impressed by her leadership. By noon, they reached a preliminary agreement worth $400 million. His team prepared legal drafts, and Emily confirmed her lawyers would review them immediately. As they stood to leave, Michael paused at the door and asked gently, "Are you telling your father before the news becomes public?" Emily looked at the city through her office windows before answering. "I'll give him a courtesy call," she said. "Whether he listens is up to him." Michael nodded, understanding more than he said. After they left, Emily felt a calm determination settle over her. Her father had spent months chasing Michael's approval, never realizing she was the person shaping Michael's next major business move. Now everything was moving forward, whether her family understood it or not. Her phone rang an hour later. It was her father again, asking casually, "Do you know anything about AI, Emily?" She closed her eyes briefly before replying, "Some." He explained that Michael mentioned the company he planned to merge with used artificial intelligence. "This could be huge for him," he said. Emily listened quietly, knowing he still had no idea he was talking about her. "You should study successful people like Michael," he added proudly. Emily stared at her magazine cover and whispered, "I'll keep that in mind." The next 2 weeks moved quickly as Emily's legal team worked non-stop on the merger documents. Logic Core's board reviewed every detail, expressing excitement at the growth possibilities. Meanwhile, her father kept calling, still praising Michael as if he were a legend. "He thinks just like me," her father bragged one afternoon. Emily smiled softly, knowing Michael had actually compared her father to a man who thought small. She continued preparing the final version of the merger agreement, focusing on the future rather than the approval she had never received at home. Her father called again a few days later, bubbling with excitement. He explained how Michael had invited him to a prestigious club, a place her father had always dreamed of entering. "Do you know how rare a membership is?" he said proudly. Emily listened as she reviewed financial reports, balancing spreadsheets while he continued praising Michael's generosity. Then he casually mentioned that Michael said the CEO of the tech company was a young woman who built her company from nothing. "Times have changed," he joked. Emily simply replied, "Yes, Dad. They really have." The night before the merger announcement, Emily received a text from Sarah. "Mom wants to invite you to brunch on Sunday," Sarah wrote. "She's hosting Michael and his girlfriend." Emily stared at the message, realizing her mother wanted her present only because Michael mattered. "I have plans," Emily replied. Sarah insisted it was important for their father, but Emily knew their motives had never truly involved her. She responded politely and placed her phone aside, unwilling to return to a family dynamic built on appearances. Friday morning arrived, marking the official public announcement of the merger. At exactly 9 a.m., the press release went out to major financial news outlets. Logic Core Systems, founded and led by CEO Emily Adams, announced the $400 million acquisition of Carter Transport Solutions. Within minutes, Emily's phone began ringing non-stop. Reports flooded in from business networks analyzing the deal. Emily sat quietly in her office, sipping her coffee as the world reacted to the achievement her family had overlooked for years. Her sister called first, sounding shocked. "Emily, is this you? You're the CEO merging with Michael Carter?" Sarah asked breathlessly. "Yes," Emily replied calmly. Sarah couldn't understand how they'd missed something so large. "How did we not know? How did Mom and Dad not know?" she asked. Emily answered simply, "No one asked." Sarah hung up quickly, overwhelmed. Mom called next, her voice trembling. Your picture is everywhere, Emily, she said. The Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg. Did you really buy a company for $400 million? Emily confirmed gently. Her mother insisted Emily misled them by saying she worked in tech. Emily reminded her that she always mentioned founding Logic Core. That is not the same as being a CEO, her mother argued. Emily replied, You never asked for clarity. Her mother sighed heavily. Your father is furious, she said. He wants to speak to you. Her father came on the phone, furious and embarrassed. What is this, Emily? He shouted. Michael called me this morning asking why I never mentioned my daughter runs a huge company. Do you know how foolish that makes me look? Emily stayed calm and said, I told you many times I run a company. Her father argued that she described it like a small job. You made it sound unimportant, he insisted. Emily replied softly, You decided it was unimportant. He hung up before she could finish. The next 2 days were full of chaos as Emily handled investor calls, integration meetings, and non-stop media attention. She ignored most interview requests, choosing instead to focus on the merger itself. Meanwhile, her parents struggled with new headlines linking Emily's company to Michael's empire. Saturday morning, Sarah texted again saying their mother hadn't slept all night. Emily understood the shock but refused to apologize for succeeding. She spent her weekend planning the next stages of the merger, determined not to let family drama distract her from what truly mattered. On Sunday morning, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Sarah stood outside in her workout clothes, looking nervous. She walked into the penthouse slowly, her eyes widening as she saw the space Emily had built. You live here? She asked in disbelief. For 3 years, Emily said. Sarah sat down on the couch, silent for a moment. I just don't understand, she said quietly. Why didn't you tell us? Emily looked at her and replied, I told you many times. You just never listened. Sarah admitted she always thought Emily's company was a small startup, not a global powerhouse. You seemed so normal, she whispered. Emily smiled. I am normal. I just worked hard. Sarah sighed and said their mother felt betrayed and their father felt humiliated. Emily explained that their feelings came from their own expectations, not from anything she did wrong. I'm the same person I was last week, she said. Nothing has changed except what you finally decided to see. Sarah looked around the penthouse again, touching the edge of the marble counter as if making sure it was real. Mom keeps saying she doesn't know who you are anymore, she admitted softly. Emily replied, I haven't changed. You all just never asked. Sarah nodded, ashamed. Dad is taking this the hardest, she said. He keeps repeating that Michael must think he's small. Emily paused before answering. That's not my responsibility, Sarah. I never hid anything. I only stopped forcing them to care. Sarah stood to leave but stopped near the door. For what it's worth. I'm proud of you, she said quietly. Emily smiled, appreciating the honesty even if it came late. After Sarah left, Emily returned to her laptop, ready to continue the work that kept her grounded. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed again, this time from Michael. I hope I didn't cause trouble with your father, he said. Emily replied, You didn't cause anything. The truth just arrived sooner than they expected. Michael chuckled gently, understanding more than he said. Michael explained that her father had called him repeatedly, demanding he cancel the merger. He said I was betraying him by working with you, Michael added. Emily sighed, embarrassed but unsurprised. Michael continued, I told him business isn't about family pride. It's about results. And you deliver results. Emily thanked him, though she felt a mix of sadness and relief. Michael ended the call by saying, I'm glad I partnered with the right Adams. Emily closed her phone and whispered, Me too. 3 weeks later, her father requested a meeting at a quiet cafe. He looked older, his shoulders heavier than she remembered. He sat across from her without speaking at first. Michael pulled his investment, he finally said. My firm can't survive without it. Emily folded her hands calmly. I'm sorry, Dad. He stared at her, searching her face. Are you? He asked softly, unsure whether she meant it. Emily replied, I didn't cause this. Your reaction did. Her father argued that he was simply surprised, overwhelmed, caught off guard. Emily listened, then asked him a simple question. Tell me one thing you knew about my company before the news broke. He opened his mouth, then closed it, unable to answer. Emily said gently, You never asked, Dad. Not once in 7 years. He rubbed his forehead with regret. You should have pushed harder, he whispered. Emily shook her head. I shouldn't have to fight for my own family to see me. After a long silence, her father finally said, Your mother wants you to come to Sunday dinner. Emily raised an eyebrow. Why now? She asked. Because you're family, he replied weakly. Emily sighed, remembering all the years she was treated like an outsider. I've always been family, she said. He nodded slowly, accepting her words. She agreed to attend once but warned, If you introduce me as someone who works in tech, I'm walking out. A faint smile crossed his face. Understood. The merger officially closed 63 days later with a final valuation of $412 million. Logic Core Systems and Carter Transport became one unified powerhouse, reshaping the logistics industry. Emily's personal net worth rose sharply, though she barely paid attention to that part. The focus for her was the mission, the growth, and the impact she could make. News outlets ran fresh stories about her leadership, calling her one of the most influential CEOs of her generation. Emily accepted the attention with calm professionalism, knowing she had earned every line written about her. That evening, her father called again after reading a new profile. Did you have to mention the family dynamic? He asked. Emily replied softly. They asked about my motivation. I told the truth. Her father sighed, feeling both exposed and understood. It makes me look like a bad father, he murmured. Emily asked, Were you a good one? The silence that followed was long and honest. I'm trying to be better, he finally said. Emily nodded. Trying counts. Sunday dinner arrived, and Emily kept her promise. Her mother cooked pot roast and tried hard to make conversation without ignoring or belittling her work. Her father introduced her properly for the first time, saying, This is my daughter, Emily Adams, the CEO. The room fell quiet for a moment, but Emily simply smiled. Her parents were still learning, still adjusting, still growing. She wasn't sure what their relationship would become, but for the first time in years, she felt a door slowly opening instead of closing. The next morning, Emily returned to her corner office, overlooking the city she helped transform. She opened her laptop, reviewed the integration timeline, and prepared for another full day of decisions that shaped industries. Her phone buzzed with a message from Michael. Congratulations, partner. Ready to change the world. Emily smiled, feeling the quiet strength of someone who built her life with her own hands. Not better than her family, not worse, just different. She had created something meaningful, powerful, and entirely hers. And now, finally, the world and her family could see her clearly.